Today we're going to cover a lot of things. We're going to be looking in kind of an overarching way at miracles and how we come to view miracles and see miracles in our lives. But we're going to be looking at it from a vantage point of when things go good and also when things don't go good. Where is God's presence in the midst of those times as well? And so I'd like us to just kind of jump in. St. Augustine, I think, had a very interesting quote. He says, "Miracles are not contrary to nature, but only contrary to what we know about nature." That's something that should make you go, that's interesting. Now, you can chew on that one all afternoon, right? So, the text in Genesis talks about Abram, and he's at the Oaks of Mamre. We learned a couple weeks ago that he built an altar there. That was a significant moment when God reiterated the promise that he would have offspring and he would have land. And so he's there, and three visitors come, and these three visitors are of a nature that he instantly recognizes that there is something very unique, something very special about these individuals. They are about to announce again a reiteration of that promise, but in a very direct way, and naming a time to when that promise would be fulfilled, and also a proclamation of a coming devastation. So there's miracles that are coming. So why does God do miracles? Well, St. Augustine again. He says, God doesn't do miracles just for the sake of doing miracles, but in order that things which he did should inspire wonder in those who saw them and convey truth to them who understand. So he's saying that a miracle will happen in a situation, and there'll be people of faith and people not of faith that will see the exact same thing, and they will view it totally differently. He goes on. He says, it's like a person that sees letters in an excellently written manuscript, but doesn't know how to read. He praises indeed the transcriber's hand, admires the beauty of the characters, but what those characters mean or what they signify, the individual doesn't know because they can't read, right? And by the sight of his eyes, he is a praiser of the work, but in his mind, he has no comprehension of it. Whereas another man who both praises the work and is capable of understanding it, such a one, who is not only able to see what is common to all, but who can also read, which he who has never learned cannot. So you'll have people that will look at a miracle and go, well, that was quite a coincidence, right? And people of faith that go, wow, I see the hand of God all over the place, right? So Abram runs back to the tent. I just want to show you his estimation of how great these three individuals are, right? We discover that Yahweh is in the midst of those three individuals, and of course there's three individuals, and he turns to them and says, Lord. He doesn't say lords, he says Lord, right? So you got Christian theologians running all over the place going, ooh, 1 and 3, Trinity, I don't know. Maybe not, who knows? But it's you can play around with it a little bit. But listen to what Abraham does. This is just crazy what he does, right? So the text here says, he yells out to Sarah, get 3 large measures of your best flour. In Hebrew, the Hebrew word is seah, and a third of an ephoth is a seah. And so he says, get 3 seahs, so that means 1 ephoth, and an ephoth is like a bushel basket. So imagine a bushel basket full of flour. Now my mind just runs down rabbit holes all the time. I go, how much bread could you make with a bushel of flour? And of course, the internet told me. 90 loaves of 1 pound whole wheat bread from a bushel of flour. How many visitors? 3. And Abraham says to Sarah, make 90 loaves of bread for these 3 individuals. It gets even better. he runs out to the herd and he chooses a tender calf, doesn't get a full-grown animal, right? And so when an animal, as a calf, to get veal, oftentimes that animal, again, the internet helped me out, about a 600-pound calf, and you can get about 190, depending on the butcher, you can get maybe even up to 300 pounds of beef off of that animal. Even at 190 pounds, that is a lot of hamburgers, a lot of steaks, and a lot of roasts for 3 individuals, right? So Abraham is going crazy in hospitality because he recognizes that these 3 individuals are incredibly special, right? And then he goes and he sits off in a tree and he watches them eat. He doesn't even help them eat all this bread and all this food. So then the 3 say, "Where is Sarah?" Inside the tent. And then here's the reiteration of the promise, right? I mean, this promise was given them all the way back in Haran, right? And time has gone by. They've been in Canaan, and then they went to Egypt, and now they're back in Canaan, and they travel around the wilderness. They probably had to reach a point where they said, you know, God said this is going to happen, but man, a long time has gone by. I think he's forgotten about this, and we're reaching a point where it's getting just a little crazy, right? Abraham's 100 years old, folks. How many of you would like to be 100 and have a baby? Yeah, look at all those hands go up, right? We're going, this is crazy talk. And Sarah's 90, right? And so here's what's said. We're going to return about this time next year, and Sarah is going to have a son. And Sarah can't help but bursting out laughing, because that is hilarious. I mean, that's just silly. That's goofy. That's crazy talk, right? And so she just says, how could this worn-out woman have a kid? And my master, Abraham, he's so old, you know, he's just totally gone. So she laughs, right? And the visitor, the Lord, Yahweh, says, why did Sarah laugh? Well, because this is nuts, God. I mean, this is crazy talk, God. And God says then, what? Is anything too hard for the Lord? Even when it seems impossible, is anything too hard for the Lord? Timothy Keller, in a book called The Mother of God, writes this. He says, the prophecy was that the nations of the earth would be blessed through his family, through Abraham's family. Your offspring, Genesis 12:7, all the way back then. He meant that he had to have children. Sarah, Abraham's wife, had been unable to conceive. So biologically speaking, having children seemed impossible. But God promised Abraham would have a son, and as the years turned into decades, however, the divine promise became more and more difficult to believe, right? Too much time has gone by. Our mortal brains don't get it. And finally, after Abraham was over 100 years old, Sarah over 90, she gave birth to a son, Isaac. Clearly divine intervention. That is like the understatement of the world, right? So Isaac's name means laughter, right? Because of, Keller says, because of possibly the joy that the parents had, but probably more because Sarah just couldn't hold it inside and busted a gut laughing. So the Lord comes sometimes when we least expect it, delivers on a promise that we've given up on because too much time has gone by, and the Lord, I believe, places us in times and places where we're supposed to be at that God-given moment if we simply open ourselves up to recognize the hand of God. Now, I'm going to show you a video clip, and you're going to recognize, some of you are going to recognize a couple people in this video. Brad and Pam Birkland. Brad is one of our church board members, and they have been on a mission trip in Uganda. They've been there almost 3 months, and they're going to be coming back this next week. But I want to share with you the experience that they just had.
Hi, my name is Mike Sally. I'm one of the co-founders of Show Mercy International, and we have got an incredible video to show you today. You're going to want to see this. Many of you know we've been raising money for a birthing center in Uganda where women can come and receive prenatal care, deliver their babies, and receive postnatal care. And I want to show you a video today that will show you why this is so important. A little spoiler here, we had a baby delivered in one of our Show Mercy vehicles. So check this out. We'll be back after the video to tell you how you can get involved.
Benangay.
Oh my goodness, do we have a story for you? It's a story of God's grace, of God's perfect timing, putting the right people in the right place at the right time. We want to tell you what happened to us just the last few days. We were asked to join the sponsorship team at the last minute to take a trip into Wakiso. Of course we said yes, and we jumped on in.
While we're driving down one of the bumpy village roads, we see a woman fall to her knees, obviously in distress. So we stop the vehicle, jump out, and help her to her feet, and realize that she's in terrible pain, and she says that she needs to go to Wakiso and that she was going to get a boda to try to get to town. So we offer her a lift. We get situated and put her in the passenger seat and start down, again, the bumpy road.
A boda is a motorcycle, and she was in no condition to take the motorcycle taxi on into Wakiso, which is about 30 minutes away.
So as we're going, we realize that she's actually in labor and that she's going to have a baby. So we're going down the road. We think we probably have enough time, but we get to a point and she yells something in Uganda that we have no idea what she says, and I tell the driver, stop the car. We get out, I get out and come around to the passenger side and open the door, and she has delivered the baby, and the baby is on the passenger floor
Of the Prado. This is where I jump out of the car to go check on the baby and check on the mama. The baby, we get him cleaned up. It's a boy, and he is looking good. He's breathing fine. We clean him up, wrap him up, while Brad is trying to find something to tie off the umbilical cord with.
So we end up finding, by God's grace, we end up stopping the vehicle in front of a house that the woman was about 9 months pregnant. So she had some of the supplies needed to take care of this. She had some gloves, she had some cotton, so she allowed us to borrow those. We cut the top off of a rubber glove and cut that little rubber band in half. We made 2 bands to tie the umbilical cord. We ended up with a Jaja there that is kind of a midwife, so she helped with that, and we ended up cutting the umbilical cord and getting the baby pulled out into safety, get him wrapped up, and then start taking care of the mother.
At this point, the mother is not doing real well. She's bleeding too heavily, and so we move her to the back seat of the Prado where she can lay down. I have the baby all wrapped up, warm and tight by this point, but we go on down to take her to the clinic because we know that she needs more medical care than what we can do. And so we get to the clinic in Wakiso, the closest hospital, and find out that they won't even look at her until she can provide all the medical supplies. So again, it's more surgical gloves, it's IV solution and tubing, it's cotton to take care of, cleaning and wiping up the baby and the mama, bed sheets, food, etc. So a couple of the gals from our team ran to the pharmacy to go get supplies. And at this point, I'm waiting with the mama outside on a wooden bench until they can return to bring the supplies so that they'll actually look at her. We get her into the clinic. She's looked at, cared for finally, and everything turns out great.
We're standing here on the land at Show Mercy, where we hope to put the birthing center. We have a great piece of land that's accessible to many of the villages around here and is an ideal spot to have the birthing center.
To eliminate birth defects, problems with babies in distress, mamas in distress, stillborns, this birthing center is such a needed area of ministry for Show Mercy. It will take care of mamas for prenatal care, during the birth, and post-care. And we can't think of a better way to help the villagers, to reap change, to see growth and goodness happening all over. God is great. He put us in the right place at the right time to be able to help this mama. The baby's name is Favor, God's favor, and certainly God showed favor to this woman because she and baby are both doing fine.
So we're in the process of putting the plans together for the birthing center. We're in the works of raising the money for that. If you feel called to help with this ministry, with this outreach, with this project, please contact us. Look at the website, contact us at Show Mercy, and we can make this happen together.
And we're calling all doctors and nurses, please come and serve. We could use you. Short-term, long-term, anything in between. Please consider coming here.
Can you believe what you just saw? This is exactly why we need to get this project rolling and rolling quickly. Our goal is to have this birthing center up and running by summer of 2018, but we need your help to do it. We're asking you to consider making a donation towards our birthing center. You can make it for a year-end donation. If anybody out there would like to match funds on this, we could really use your help. We've raised already about $18,000, and we're estimating it's going to cost about $100,000 for this project to be complete. We can definitely do this together. We want to encourage you, get involved, make a donation, come on a trip. It's going to help save so many lives, and we just want to invite you to be a part of this. This is going to be a project that's going to really bring transformation to so many people. I want to invite you to come with us on a medical mission trip this February 2018. You can meet some of the incredible people that we're going to be helping with this project. Well, thank you in advance for your support. Hi, my name is Mike Sally. I'm one of the co-founders of Show Mercy.
Mike's really excited about that project. He won't go away. Just so you know, Brad's not a doctor, neither is Pam. As a matter of fact, Brad sold tires his whole life. So they were so far out of their comfort zone, but we're the right people, the right time, in the right place. Next Sunday is going to be our second annual mission fair. Brad and Pam will be back, and I think they're going to have a table at both campuses, so you'll have an opportunity to ask them more and say, hey, I saw your video, more details of that story. We're also going to have other tables of other ministries that impact people's lives, not only here in Omaha, but internationally as well. And we're going to have time in between services to go out and for you to see how the Lord might be calling you to step in the gap and to make a difference in the life of people, and to be a person that is involved in some of the miracles that God is doing out there. So those are the good things. Now we turn our attention to the next part of this story, which is Sodom. So the word that comes to Abraham is that Sodom is going to be destroyed. It has become so wicked, so evil. I mean, it's an echo of what we heard about the flood, an echo of the Tower of Babel, Cain. I mean, the list goes on and on and on. So it's kind of the same MO again happening in Genesis. But we learn that Abraham pleads for Sodom. And why would he plead for Sodom? His nephew Lot lives there, right? And so it's not that Abraham wants evil to continue, but he has a real love for his nephew, to the point that Abraham keeps saying, you know, what if we find 50? What if we find 40? What if we find, just a few? What if we find one righteous man, right? And it's an interesting story. The reason that I'm so intrigued by it is this. When I was in seminary, I was basically taught that the story of Sodom in Genesis didn't really happen. It's just a made-believe story. It's kind of a fairy tale story to, scare kids so they'll behave themselves, right? Most biblical maps, when you look at it, if you see where the Dead Sea is, if you go down right above the word Moab, you'll see Sodom with a question mark. For a long time, that was where they placed Sodom, because of a place called Babadra, and it had some features that kind of echoed what was described in Sodom, but they put a question mark there, Gomorrah a little farther south, and they don't really know, they don't really care, because it's not that really important. I had an opportunity to hear Dr. Stephen Collins at one of our LCMC gatherings down Albuquerque, New Mexico. He's an archaeologist from Trinity Southwest University in Albuquerque, and they work with the Jordanian Department of Antiquities, and they are digging at a location called Tal El Hammam. And a couple weeks ago, I talked about the Kikar of the Jordan. If you remember, Lot and Abraham, they separated because they had too many flocks and stuff, and it said that Lot looked down and he saw the Kikar. He saw this circular disc, and it was all green, and it was of the Jordan. So it's that circle that's on the right-hand side. And so that whole area was incredibly green because of the Jordan River. It said he went down, he crossed the Jordan River, and he pitched his tent outside Sodom. And so that would not be anywhere near where most Bible maps place Sodom. I mean, why in the world would there be green down there? It's called the Dead Sea for a good reason. Nothing grows there, right? So the largest tell, a tell is a big mound of dirt that looks really weird. It looks like a hill, but it's very uniform or very strange. And as archaeologists dig in these tells, they begin to find the strata of a city. Tel El Hammam is the largest tell there. You could take all the other tells, dump them into Tel El Hammam, and you still wouldn't have the same size of tell. And as they dug, they discovered that this city started in the Iron Age, or in the Chalcolithic time or the Stone Age time, and it was operating full tilt for 3,000 years. It'd get attacked by an enemy army, rebuild. Earthquake would happen, rebuild. It'd have a fire in the city, they'd rebuild. It just kept rebuilding. Nothing stopped this city. It was like the New York City of its day and age during the time of Abraham. During the time of Abraham, this city, like New York City, that's been in full operation for 3,000 years, goes out of business in one fell swoop. There's no signs of life there for another 500 to 700 years. Not only that, but the burial spots up in the hills, they stop. There is nobody burying anybody anymore because there's nobody around. It's decimated. Charred ash, dated during the period of Abraham. To prove I was there, like this is going to be proof that I was there, but this little pottery shard is called a diagnostic, and it is dated during the time of Abraham. So this is an actual pottery shard from Tel El Hammam during the time of Abraham. Bodies found in the charred remains that were not buried. You could see by the way the bones were laid out, a traumatic event had happened. Then this is the one that blows my mind. One of these pottery shards that they found in the upper tell had green glaze on it. And Dr. Collins thought it's corrupt sight because they didn't have green glaze during the time of Abraham. They didn't paint their pots, they just made their pots. But this one had green glassy glaze, but it was clearly from the diagnostics dated during the time of the Middle Bronze Age, during the time of Abraham. Took it back to Trinity University Southwest, ran diagnostics on it, and took it to a geologist to have a boring sample done. And when he saw it, he said, you got a piece of trinitite here. And Dr. Collins said, I don't know what you're talking about. What's trinitite? And this guy said, we got it all over the place down here in New Mexico because of the nuclear bomb tests. What happens is when a nuclear explosion goes off, sand basically becomes a gas, cools, liquefies, and then becomes a green glassy glaze. He examined it, ran it through his tests, said, yep, it's trinitite. Where'd you get this? Dr. Collins said, on a hill in Jordan. And he said all the color went out of this guy's face because he said nature doesn't make this. This is a freak of nature. Something of a cataclysmic nature happened at Tel El Hammam. I believe we found Sodom. And if you don't want to believe me, you can read about it. Dr. Collins wrote a book a couple years ago called Discovering the City of Sodom. And so you can read this book. It takes you into some depth describing the biblical narrative and then the verifications that have happened through archaeology. And then you might say, well, I don't want to go birth babies in Uganda, but I might like to go dig in Jordan. You can go on the website, telelhammam.org, and you can actually sign up. They go digging in January and February, and there are people much older than me that go and dig, just saying. Martin Luther reflecting on this whole thing. It says, God loved Abraham so much. Abraham pleaded for Lot to be saved, right? God loved Abraham so much that he saved Lot because of Abraham. Not because of Lot. We've discovered Lot was just a kind of a scallywag. For he did not want the heart of this saintly Abraham to be saddened endlessly, but left him this comfort, lest he have sorrow upon sorrow, lest he have sorrow upon sorrow. Thus, in all the accounts of the saints, Luther says, you see trouble alternating with deliverance, suffering with comfort, and tears with joy. Therefore, they, the saints, this is All Saints Sunday, we're remembering the saints who have gone before us, and we are the saints of today. Therefore, the saints are the true atlases who bear heaven on their shoulders. That is, sustain the burden of divine wrath in such great disasters and still keep their trust in mercy, even though they see the opposite. In the end, they experience how great the power of believing prayer is. In faith, in the midst of devastation and destruction, hardship and persecution, the faithful can see the miracles. They can see the little glimmers of light. They can see the hope that comes from God, and sometimes that hope is temporal for this world, and sometimes it's eternal. But as people of faith, we can see this. We understand this. We cherish this. This is tough stuff. Tough stuff to believe in a promise that goes on and on. Tough stuff to say, yeah, I think there's miracles in the horrible times when life just beats me up and deals me bad cards, right? This is tough stuff. But I want you to listen, because I believe we as the church should be all about this tough stuff. A book I came across by the name Big Questions, Worthy Dreams, written by Sharon Parks. Her research discovered this. And one of the major pieces of her book, she writes this. In a conversation with a seasoned pastor, I ask, why do you think that so many emerging adults are present in your congregation? That's a fancy name for young adults, okay? Why do you have so many? And rather than referencing the size of the congregation, or the kind of music, or the use of media, or the charismatic leadership, he thoughtfully responded, and this is what he said. I think it's because we are willing to welcome a lot of questions, where anybody can ask anything. This means, of course, not simply responding with traditional or easy answers or mere tolerance, but rather engaging in serious and sustained dialogue. It means a willingness to recognize the mystery that all of us share. It's to mean for the church to be mature in its faith, to not skirt issues, but walk boldly when things don't make sense. To say, I still trust in God and God's promise, even when life looks dark. Even when the promise looks like there is no way in the world it's ever going to happen. To sustain our lives in that way. Our congregation has a new vision statement. The church board just approved this, and you're going to hear this so much you're going to be sick and tired of it. But I don't care. And here it is. Share the love of Christ today.